Okay, hopefully my sound will work from the start this time. I'm going to do a very quick tutorial for getting started on the server. We're on, you want Mars drop pod. If it starts you off like this, you're going to hit respawn. We spawned a whole solar system basically, so we're currently starting on Mars. So if you start there, you can join us. So we'll wait for the drop pod to do its thing. This isn't a cutscene, we're actually playing. This is a respawn vehicle. You own it, but it's temporary in the sense that if you die and elect to respawn again in a respawn vehicle, this original vehicle will disappear. You can modify this, but it's always going to know that it was a respawn vehicle, so watch out for that. Ideally you want to eventually take all of this apart and build a completely new mission. Ouch. So we've landed, so let's crack on. I pressed the use key to leave the seat. I'm going to press the V key for view. These keys might not be the default. Anyway, let's crack on. So there are three primary tools. There's a diggy tool for digging the ground. There's a grinder for taking stuff apart. Don't use that on the ground, that's stupid. And there's a welder for building stuff. So build, take apart, dig. Easy as. You start with all three tools that you'll need in the game. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take apart this atmospheric thruster. If you look in the bottom right hand corner, it will tell you all the components that were required to build it. They're currently highlighted in white because it's been built and it works. So we'll start taking that apart, and as you can see, it's starting to, that list is starting to unload and go grey as all of these things appear in my inventory. There are the three tools that I'm carrying, and here's all the parts. Now the physics in this game, it's all pretty logical. So we're obviously dealing with volume and we're dealing with mass. So my inventory is a volume based system, so I can only carry so much volume. If I was to keep going and just grinding all this stuff, bits would start falling on the floor. And stuff can be on the floor, so we can drop these plates. There they are. Pick them up. Stuff tends to stay on the ground for a while before it despawns. There isn't a mad rush, but I certainly wouldn't leave stuff on the ground. So that's how you take stuff apart. Now if we wanted to put that thruster back, or we could just fix this block, which I just accidentally ground, whatever. Anyway, that was an atmospheric thruster. So so I pressed the G key there. So to build things, you press G, I think is default, and you get this menu. Now this, because it's kind of a sandboxy game, this menu has everything on. At least it is for our server. You can have a progression tree where you unlock stuff, but I don't know. I think it's a bit boring. So anyway, atmospheric thruster. So you've got the blueprint to everything. Whether or not you've got the materials is another thing entirely. So let's just put this atmospheric thruster back. If you use the number, not the number pad key, the insert, delete, end, home, all that stuff, page up, page down, if you use that, you can rotate the block to put it in the right place. So I couldn't place that without the very first ingredient, which is a steel plate. And because I was carrying that in my inventory, because we obviously took it off, I was able to build that. If I had nothing in my inventory, it would just say no dice. It wouldn't let me do that. So for example, if I tried to put that down, it says I need an interior plate. So the computer says no. So anyway, we get our welder out, and we can rebuild it. Simple as. So anyway, the starting pod has got everything there that you need to get going. Obviously you need oxygen to breathe, and that is dealt with by this handy unit called the survival kit. We can click on this pad here, and if you look in the bottom left, it's topping up my resources, which is simply health, oxygen to breathe, electricity, which is in my suit, which powers all the tools, so I can only weld and grind and dig for so long before I need to get my energy back up, and hydrogen, which is my jetpack fuel. So if I press, oh, don't want to press that, took my helmet off. If I press jetpack, then I'll fly, and I can only fly for so long before I will need a top up. Power is being generated on this pod. It isn't actually being generated, it's just stored power. So we have a battery unit here, and that's only going to last so long. And we can find out how long by going into the interface. We'll do that in a second. And we have here the O2 generator, So in order to survive without oxygen, if you're not on an Earth-like planet, you simply need ice. You put ice in an O2 generator and it will do it. It'll also generate hydrogen, so that's how I'm able to top up my hydrogen for my thrusters. And you don't just get thrusters on a character, you can build hydrogen thrusters on your ship, which is a good way of getting out of an atmosphere, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. Anywho, digging. We have this survival kit which also acts as a refinery and an assembler. So if I needed to build another thruster, I would need steel plates, construction components, motors. I'm reading everything in the bottom right hand list. I'd need to make those. So I'd need to get the raw materials out of the ground by digging them. I'd need to process them through the refinery to create the ingots, and then I would need to use the assembler to assemble those ingots into the various components that I need, which I would then build. So I'm going to go into the interface, which will take a while to get used to. The control panel, basically every single block within this entire grid of my landing, of my survival pod is here, it's connected. So all the individual activity, it doesn't list things like armor blocks because you can't interact with those, but anything that you can interact with, you can come into here. So I can see that the antenna is currently on, it's using power. I might as well turn that off, that's not bringing anything. Antenna allows you to remote control stuff. This thruster that I just replaced, I'll turn that off. Here's the battery. You can see that it's currently going to deplete in 8 hours, so there's no rush. There's plenty of stored power. It's slowly going down, obviously. Beacon, that's off. That's like an antenna, but it's just long range and uses less power. There's the O2 generator. Certainly want to leave that running. An ore detector, we'll turn that off. If we're inside the ship, if we sat in the passenger seat, it'll tell us if there's ore nearby. Basically, parachute hatch was there to stop us from dying at the start. We got this cargo container, and we got the survival kit. Production. Basically, if you want to produce some components to build something, you can do that here. This list expands as you get more and more higher tier assemblers. We've just got a basic assembler, which this basically dictates what you can build to get started. So, in order to get started, if you crouch, you start digging. And the stone comes out of the ground, you can pick it up, you can stick it into the survival kit, and you can go into production and you can tell it to start making ingots. So this is like a mini refinery all rolled into one with an assembler that does everything. Unfortunately, you don't pick up stuff as you mine it. It kind of bounces around and you have to press E and pick it up manually. You can just sort of dump it in, and it'll carry on with the production queue. But if we wanted to get some plates on the go, because we wanted to start building something else, then we could do that. So it's now just created a plate for us. So if we go into the inventory tab, this is showing what we're looking at. That's actually showing the survival kit, obviously, that we're interfacing with, and we can drag the plate over to my inventory, and I now have that plate, and that will allow me to start building anything that is the first component is plate. So if I wanted to put another thruster on, I could. I can also start building a station or a platform to work with. So there's two sizes of blocks. Little, which is what your rovers and sort of small fighters or anything like that you would make out of a small grid, and then there's a large grid which is stations and large capital ships. If I click that down, that is now a completely separate grid to that. It knows it's a large grid and it knows that it's a station. We can't really interact with it at the moment because there's nothing on it to interact with, but we would want to change that. So we would want, the first step is we'd want to get some power, so we would put a turbine down. Now we'd want to make this much higher. Oh, I've already got a turbine on my menu. I'd want to make this I want to place this a lot higher up in the air, but I'll just put it down for sake of cracking on. So we can see we need interior plates, computers, girders, etc. So I can start building those. And there's a lot of hard work, you know, to get yourself started. It's a bit of a slow burn at the start. So we can start building this. And I can see that I need motors next, so I obviously have to do a lot more digging to get things going. But yeah, that's you know, that'll get you started basically. You'll work the rest out as you go, but this will get you started. Because it's a bit of a brutal start. This there are better scenarios where you start off with an actual shed, a base, and assemblers and stuff like that. But to start from scratch like this is pretty hard. So hopefully that'll give enough to get our first motor built. So yeah, it takes a while, but once we have a turbine going, we have power, and then I could put build a bigger assembler here, or a bigger refinery here, a basic refinery, a basic assembler, and then I'd have access to more parts, and I'd be able to just expand and survive a bit more. But there's other sources of power, so there's solar panels which you can slap down. You can make these early on with the survival pod. Should be able to make all of these things to get you going. And there's engines, which is a bit more complex. You can build a hydrogen engine and a big hydrogen tank and convert the ice into hydrogen gas and fuel, and then power the hydrogen engine, which will produce electricity. Pretty much everything runs on electricity ultimately, apart from hydrogen thrusters. But there's atmospheric thrusters and iron thrusters and all that stuff. But obviously all of this is obviously running on electricity. So you'll need to charge up these batteries. And this battery obviously came charged at the start. So hopefully that makes sense. Don't be afraid to use your jetpack. I mean, obviously it's starting to go down pretty fast. We're already at 90. But you can get around quite a lot, get a good view of things, and then come back and top yourself up. These white patches are deposits, basically. If you go over there with an ore detector, it will tell you what's underneath it. There's also rocks in the distance that you can go and explore and dig. And don't be afraid to use your jetpack, because if you've got enough ice, then you can just keep topping up. So we've got enough ice to be getting on with. So if I just press that, then I can top myself up. And if we look at the O2 generator, yeah, we started off with 300 kilograms of ice, so we've only used 8 kilograms of ice so far. So you can one of the first priorities is to go find some more ice and dig it out of the ground manually, haul it over, chuck it in, and you'll be sustained for long enough to get yourself started without dying. So yeah, there we go. Quick little tutorial.